Greetings sailors and welcome to a very old replay indeed. This is from 2016, back when the Fubuki, as you can see, was a tier 8. This is one I discovered that was lost in my little archive of replays and clearly has been unused until now, and I thought given that it is a snapshot of the game 3+ years ago that it might be interesting to show off. And it's also interesting to look at how I was playing back then as well. Spoilers, it's still a bit of a noob. I mean, it kind of would make sense that I would be a bit better now than I would then, because I've had the intervening years of practice playing the game, but I don't know if I've gotten dramatically better, let's be honest. So once upon a time, there was but a single line of Japanese destroyers, and from tier 2 to tier 5, it was as you were, well, largely as you would see it today, going from the Umikaze to the Minikaze. But after that, you had the Mutsuki at tier 6, Hatsuharu at tier 7, this at tier 8, and Kagero at tier 9, topped off with the familiar Shima at tier 10. Of course, it all looks a little bit different these days, but to be honest, the only one I kind of have any special nostalgia for from how the tree used to be was the Kagero at tier 9, which I remember particularly enjoying as I was playing through it. The Fubuki at tier 8 I don't have any especially strong memories of, and whilst I can look at this and see that it was, clearly okay, it was definitely not the stealthiest tier 8. I'll get outspotted by the gearing a couple of times in this game, so yeah, I don't know. This is more just the historical interest, as it were, of this replay, and just seeing things as they were back before radar was quite so prevalent, when there were far fewer ships around, and of course old carriers were a thing as well, although that's not present in this particular game. And actually, in Japanese destroyers, carrier cross drops with torpedoes were a particular threat, because they did not maneuver particularly well. Carriers, or at least decently skilled carrier players, could set you up so that you just couldn't dodge, basically. On the plus side, though, no rocket planes. That's the current destroyer bugbear with carriers. But yeah, at least with the rocket planes, you don't get one shot in the same way. It's more like 2 or 3 shots if you're unlucky. It really just does depend. So that's definitely a thing that currently needs to change, and I kind of wonder if I'll be sitting in front of this computer in another 3+ years time reminiscing about how carriers were now, or perhaps being thankful that they had changed in some way. So I've got the cap, but no actual damage so far, and well, these days I think I'd be setting up to maybe attack that De Grosser, who is pushing forwards a bit. They're doing so cautiously. They've got the gearing and another destroyer there as well, and like I said, I can be outspotted by the gearing, but instead I get a bit distracted from what is possibly the more useful thing, and decide I'm going to stick around to make a drop on the rune instead, that's now pushing forwards into the cap. And this rune is quite probably a Hydro rune rather than a defensive AA rune. Was that even were they even in the same slot back in the day? I mean, consumables have changed, obviously, and even the nature of some of the consumables has changed quite a lot. I mean, smoke, for instance, back in 2016, that would have been before the smoke detectability changes came in. And so you'll actually see me in a little bit trying to get up to smoke the North Carolina that's on this flank, because unlike these days, there wasn't that smoke firing debuff. You had what was in retrospect the slightly ridiculous situation of somebody being able to sit in smoke and fire at ships only a couple of kilometres away whilst they're in a battleship and to be completely undetected. Not the best drop, that. I managed to put 2 of them into the island and none of them actually hit the runes, so that was a bit of a waste. It probably would have been more sensible to stagger those drops a little bit rather than just dump them all out at once. But, I mean, joking aside, I think I have gotten better since I played this game in late 2016. And I definitely wouldn't play this in the same way these days. It's almost as much of interest to me to sit back and watch me playing 3 years ago as it is to enjoy the novelty of tier 8 Fubuki. Heck, even things like captain skills will have changed in that time, won't they? 3 years is a long time in an online game. So this side has unfortunately been rather pushed out, and I don't think I've done that much to stop it, to be quite honest. We do have the centre, although our Shima is being engaged by an enemy destroyer. And on the other side, well, nobody has the sea cat, but all our ships are bundled together on the 9-10 line, which is it's not practicing social distancing, let's put it that way. Yeah, it's hard to really get away from all that at the moment, isn't it? I know people come to YouTube and watch stuff like this specifically to distract themselves a bit, so I'll try not to bring it up too often, but like I say, it is kind of hard to get away from it. Anyway, so yeah, the gearing out spotted me by about 200 meters, so that was a little unfortunate. The rate of fire and the turret traverse on this were not exactly fantastic. I still don't think they are especially fantastic today, but back then getting into a gunfight with a gearing when you're in a lower tier Japanese destroyer would not have been a good recipe, so I just basically immediately disengaged. And it's not like I have anyone to really spot that gearing for at this point either. The Otago has pulled back, and that Yamato seems to be much more focused on the centre right now. And even then, I'm not sure I would trust the gunnery of a Yamato to try and help me out with a destroyer, because it's not like it gets to fire very often. And of course, again, this is before legendary upgrades were a thing, so it's not like they get the benefits they would have from where's the Yamato legendary upgrade? I'm suddenly, is it a faster rate of fire, or am I thinking of a completely different ship that gets a faster rate of fire? No, it is, isn't it? It gets a faster rate of fire at the expense of turret traverse. Or is it better accuracy? I can't remember. It's one of those. You'd think I would know that. I've played the Yamato enough. But compared to 3 odd years ago, there is just a lot more stuff to keep in your head these days in terms of you know, even just ships. There are just that many more ships in the game. It really has exploded in numbers. It's one of the reasons why once upon a time I was a person that did tutorials and things for World of Tanks with the SGTA clan. Basically helped people grasp the basics of the game, and then Wargaming just kept adding stuff, and what once upon a time was relatively manageable in terms of remembering specific weak spots and hit point counts and stuff like that. Yeah, it got well, not more complicated, but there was just a lot more to remember, and that's definitely been the case for warships as well. So only my second torpedo strike and onto the belt of the Yamato, so that won't have done nearly as much damage as it might have done. And also no flooding, sadly. And of course this was back in the days when flooding was much more serious. That ticking flood damage could and did kill battleships if they were unwary. And it's especially unfortunate because if I had managed to pin off flooding on that Yamato, now that my torpedoes are staggered a bit, there is every potential that I could have racked up some serious flooding damage from them. But alas, I'm not even going to get a hit with this second lot of torps that's gone out against them. It's not just me that's flinging torps around at this point, though. I'm now very close to this other destroyer. What is that? A Fletcher. So if they can get some torps in, that'll be useful. I'm also spotting for them, which is useful. And if it comes to fighting another destroyer with guns, they are rather better equipped for that than I am. I'm not happy I'm being spotted about something, though. It was that gearing again, unfortunately. So this time I've put out the smoke. And also I manage another torpedo hit, so that's a bit more damage. And there we go. I'm actually getting some flooding off this Yamato as well. But I'm not going to... Like, even if I was able to flood them out, I'm not going to get all that much just because they've been taking damage from other sources, as well as my torpedo. It is still a nice top-up, though. I'm not even sure if that was a standard thing at this point, the damage counter. I mean, there was a time even when you didn't get the ribbons giving you a breakdown of what damage you'd done, but I'm sure you needed a mod at some point to actually get the damage counter. Maybe this was past that point. Maybe this was the point where you could just get that as a default part of the UI. So the Yamato is dead, not my kill though, and I also somewhat unwarily opened fire on that rune. That was definitely a mistake. I have managed to get unspotted, however, but that was a lot of hit points to give away, and I didn't really need to. It's not like the rune was on especially low health, and so yeah, I didn't need to do that, and I did, and I wouldn't do that these days. However, I am going to get my revenge as, there we go, the torpedoes find their mark. He maybe didn't have hydro going, or maybe thought all the other torpedoes flying around were from me and was therefore a bit complacent, but that gave me a nice dev strike and a pretty big top up to my damage. We have been steadily winning this one at this point, despite my attempt to get myself sunk, and it really is down to now just the last couple of enemy ships. The De Grosser is currently in that gearing's smoke, so we know pretty much where the gearing is likely to be as well. I do still have some smokes left myself if I get spotted, but of course there's that reaction time of slowing down enough or turning so that you are obscured by your own smoke. So you have to be a bit careful about things like that. And yep, there we go. There's me being spotted. There's the secondaries coming out. There's the gearing. No, that's not gearing. That's a Fubuki. I can tell the difference. That's the enemy Fubuki, who doesn't have any camo on, but yeah, it's not going to make much difference at this point because they are being firmly spotted by our Shima. Don't the guns sound different, by the way? That was another thing I noticed playing back this. I can't even remember what update that would have been that changed the gun sounds and things like that, but yeah, there it is. So my torps get the De Grosser in the smoke. The Fubuki's dying drop gets our Shima, but it really doesn't matter. They're down to one ship. We are solidly ahead on points, and even if we ran this down on time, we would still win. But as it is, we're not even going to get the chance. The last remaining ship, the Ibuki, is basically just charging at us, making their presence known. They're not trying to run away, they're not trying to hide, so this will be over sooner rather than later. It seems a little unlikely, though, that I will be able to get my torps to them before they die, because the Ibuki is not the most well-armoured ship. However, there's a real chance I might die myself here, but fortunately I, of course, like the pro player I am, exactly knew that those were going to run out before they reached me and was not in any way panicking at all. Yeah, you believe me, right? So nearly 100,000 damage done and a dev strike. Only 6 torpedo hits, but of course there was some flooding damage out of the end of that, and 2k base XP. So that was probably why I kept this. It turned into a decent damage game and a good XP game. But that's not really why I'm showing it now. It really is because, hey look, it's a game from nearly, you know, what, 3.5 years ago? Something like that. So yeah, I don't know if I've got any others that are quite this old, but I might do. This is almost as far back as I can actually record replays anyway. I've only got clients back to 5 point something, 5.1? I can't even remember. I don't know. This is a 5.13 replay anyway, for whatever that means to somebody out there. Anyway, so that about wraps up this video. Hope everyone is keeping safe and sane if you are currently stuck at home. Wash your hands. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot in the coming weeks and months, but you know, it bears repeating. It's an important thing right now. And otherwise, hopefully, if you have enjoyed this video, you'll leave me a like or a comment below, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.